Hi, team.
Hello.
Welcome. We are Third Space Theater. We are some folks here from this brand new company that on paper was started in November of 2024. So we are approaching our very first year of technically being in existence. I say technically because we'll talk about it. But just to kick things off so that you know who we are, my name is Alex Church. I use he, him pronouns. And I am the leader of this company. Founded it in November 2024, and so excited to be here with you all. Em, who are you?
Hello, I am Em, they, them. I am a Third Space company member and also an actor around the Twin Cities.
I'm Maria Bella, they, them, or she, her pronouns, and I'm also a member of Third Space, and I'm an actor and writer around the Twin Cities as well.
And supporting us in front as an audience member is also Hannah Leatherbarrow.
Hey!
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Hannah. I use she, her pronouns. Also an actor, sometimes director, dramaturg, company member, moral support.
Yeah.
Happy to have you. And thank you all so much for joining us. We're really excited to talk to you about our experience devising as a developing company. And the phrase that I continually use throughout our process of creating this show that you see pictured down here, Breach, that just performed at the Minnesota Fringe Festival just a couple weeks ago. The phrase that I kept coming back to is that because we are so new, we by definition are building the car while we're driving it. We're figuring out who we are as a company, how we work, while at the same time needing to create something, because as soon as you get that fringe ball, they're like, hit the ground running. So overall, from like concept to completion, this show that we will be talking about, I think took us right around 6 months. That sounds right? Like February, from when we got in, we started thinking about, okay, what are we gonna do? To then wrapping it up just a couple weeks ago. So that's sort of the scope of what we're here to talk about with you today. I want to say too that we are here to talk about our experience. It's not going to work for everybody. It's not going to work for every company. It's not going to work for every group. It might not ever work for us again. But we learned some really great things. We're excited to talk to you about them and the process that we are in the pursuit of discovering. So that is what we are here for. And within that, we will talk a little bit about our introductions, our conception, why we are here, why we do what we do, and then specifically also what it meant to not only create our company, but also to create this show. The process that we worked through to make that happen, and then the product, and also our reflection of that product, what we would do differently, what we loved, and what we would change if we could do it again, which is the same thing as I said the first time. So, these are the 5 of us. The one person who is not here with us today is Stephanie Cayley. She is over at Theater in the Round right now, rehearsing Pride and Prejudice. So go check that out in a couple weeks when they open. But this is the team. This is a group of 5 artists that all went to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. We all graduated around 2020, 2021, so we're a whole crew of little pandemic babies who arrived into the world at a time when this degree that we just got was absolutely useless in some ways, because there just wasn't anything happening. So to that end, me as a young and plucky little artist there, look at me, 2022, wanted to start a company. I wanted to start making work. And so as we eventually coalesced around this company modality, I constantly came back to the phrase of producing work that is sticky, challenging, and taking audiences to dangerous places. What do I mean by that? I wanted shows that were not necessarily like, yay, you did it, cool, let's go to the bar. Shows that left people with things to think about, left people with hopefully new ideas, and also were an artistic challenge, not only for audiences, but also for actors, directors, dramaturgs, writers, and people who could then get together in a room and try and grow and develop and learn as artists. And also, we're talking about things that maybe were not currently being discussed in contemporary theater. I had never seen a show about crab fishing, and so we were like, yeah, let's do that. Let's follow that impulse and see where that takes us. And also, at the same time, creating these third spaces. If you've never heard that term before, a third space is a space away from home and work, which are traditionally our first and second spaces, the places where we spend the most time. And a third space then is someplace separate from that, where you're connecting with people outside of your day-to-day life. In the 60s, mid-century era, this great period of American social change, that was showing up as bowling leagues, church groups, clubs, Kiwanis clubs, all these organizations that our parents and grandparents and a lot of older folks are often part of. They connect people across political affiliation, socioeconomic status, race, gender identity, and it leads to a melting pot of conversation and connection where you're meeting people that you would not otherwise meet in your house or in your job. And so in creating this company, what I hope to do and hope to continue to do is create these third spaces, just like this conference. This is a perfect example of a third space. So many of you, I know some of you, I have never met some of you before, and I'm very excited to talk to you as the day goes on and learn more about you. But third spaces in art can also be a place where we are all united around a similar goal. We're here to make the play, we're here to see the show, we're here to engage in this particular theme or aesthetic, and within that connection, then we can build empathy, make new discoveries, grow as humans and as artists, and also hopefully instigate some social change. Because I very strongly believe that art is a brilliant vehicle for social change. I'm willing to bet all of us have walked out of a show before and had that sparkly feeling in your body that's oh my gosh, I don't know what it is, but that thing just activated me in a very particular way. Storytelling as an activation, I feel that all the time when I go to the movies, when you see Wicked and at the end you're crying and you're I don't know why, it's not sad necessarily, but I feel just sparkly. And I grew up in the Fargo-Moorhead area where there were a couple social justice theater companies, and as a younger artist, I would watch them do these performances and I would say, that's so cool, you did a show that talked about the opioid crisis, what now? So glad you did that. You're talking about something important. You did something wonderful, but also in so many ways, somebody that's going to go to a show like that kind of already knows about that theme for the most part. You're kind of preaching to the choir. And so how can we use this platform, this medium where so many wonderful artists are gathering together, pouring their energies and their intentions and their vitality into the creation of this product that then causes that sparkly feeling in people. They get activated, but they don't have anywhere for it to go. And so in building shows, I wanted to explore what would happen if we used that activation and gave it an outlet so that there was tangible social change in the community. And the first play that started with was a play that I actually produced right in this room called Abscission. It was my senior thesis that I wrote when I was in school, a two-person play about how rape culture manifests in marriage. Tricky script, to say the least. I was very ambitious, but at the time, 2022, pandemic baby, eager to make work, I wanted to do something that felt simple, felt tangible, two-hander in a small space, but also could potentially lead to some good conversation, lead to that activation. And so for that production, I partnered with the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, where I started to explore what it would look like to tie art to these local nonprofits that are making the actual change in communities. How do we as artists use that activation, build that energy within people, but then give them a place for it to go? And then it became, in the pursuit of doing it, as art sometimes does, for me personally, more of a story of survival, in the sense that we had these two wonderful actors, no shade to them, but what ended up happening was that the play was, as you can imagine, exploring some really dark themes. And eventually both of them, about a week before we opened, decided that they could not do that. They could not perform it, just for their own personal things. They were like, we love the script, we're into it, but I just can't do this for my mental health. And so my co-director and I, the wonderful Emma Kessler, then were like, well, we've put all this work into this, we really want to do this, we think the story's important, we want to give this money to this nonprofit. We decided to perform the show script in hand, both of us. We redid all the blocking, made it happen, and as a result, then it became that story of survival. I'm just trying to make this thing. And I took a lot of lessons from that as a producer, as an arts leader, as a playwright, as an actor, that then I utilized in these 2 workshops of a rock musical that I wrote about addiction called The Elephant. Learning more about how to, when you're exploring those dark themes, how do you care for your ensemble? How do you care for one another? How do you make sure that everybody is safe and able to do what it is they are being asked to do? I learned to be more forthright with certain information and themes. I sent people the script in advance. Better conversations in the group about how do you need to be cared for while we are exploring these topics. And it also helped that I had a grant. I wrote my first grant, got it, woo! Very excited about that. So we had a little bit more money too, which meant that people were able to take a little bit of those outside stressors away and be more present in the room. And also building a team. How do we support each other? This show was mostly Emma and I, and our stage manager, and then these 2 actors all figuring out how to do this tricky thing together. 2 actors that I knew, but I wasn't BFFs with. This time, across the 2 workshops, I said, no, I need some people that we speak more of the same language, we can get together, be on the same page about things, and also have more frank conversations about Maria Bella's maybe really struggling emotionally right now. What can we do as leaders in the room to, not to expose you, what can we do to help this person out and let everybody be their best selves in the room? Learning even more lessons from there, then going into my very first Fringe as well. Oh, and for the Elephant too, what we did was we added in some more tangible resources for audiences to take home, walking away with resource lists of local addiction resources for both somebody experiencing addiction, somebody struggling with that, but also their support systems. Where are the Al-Anon groups in town? Where are sober hangout spaces, those sober third spaces? Here's literally a piece of paper that has all that information. Put it on your fridge, walk away, and maybe you need it in your life, maybe you don't, but it's there. In addition to partnering with, the first workshop was in Fargo-Moorhead, partnering with partnering in Minneapolis, partnering with Wayside Recovery, which is a women and family-centered addiction recovery center out in St. Louis Park, and able to give them about $500 after our donations were all said and done. Then with primary, also learning how to do Fringe, learning how to work on in the confines of that very specific modality. For those who've never done Fringe before, you get 10 minutes to set up, you get 10 minutes to wait for the audience to walk in, you get 60 minutes to perform. If you perform 61 minutes, that light goes on and they start to walk out and you have 10 minutes to strike your show. Very rigid, very much this is your sandbox, go play. Oh, you've overstayed your welcome, time to go, we're sweeping the sand, bye-bye birdie. But learning how to work within that confine is a challenge, and it led to also some challenges where I, again, had to let an actor go halfway through the run because of some behavioral issues. And then, you can't see it in there, but a little bit off stage to that, I am standing right over here because I then took her part, performing once again in this show so that it could continue, so that we could continue our partnership with then an organization called Women Winning, which is a Minnesota nonprofit that helps get pro-choice women elected to offices big and small. But because, once more, we have this story of survival, then the focus shifts more onto okay, how do we make the art versus how do we make the art in a way that's supporting this tangible change? Which then took us to last year's Fringe show, Dutch, Made in America. That is me with a little gun to Stephanie's head down there as Ronald Reagan. But for that show, because I had had these experiences of various challenges, I made a very conscious decision as a producer to say, I want to have a good experience this time. I want to be able to focus on not only this script that I was weirdly obsessed with Ronald Reagan for a little bit, and exploring it in some interesting ways, but I also want to be able to start to think harder about how we can connect what we're doing in the rehearsal room with more tangible change in the work of this nonprofit. So I gathered some friends together and said, let's do this thing, which then gave me more freedom to not only exist as an artist, but also exist as an arts leader. And then it went so well, and I said, yay, finally, things happened the way I wanted them to. Why don't we keep going? It ain't broke, so why fix it? Let's form a company. Following that personal ethos of wanting to get people together in a room so that it's not just me being the driver of this thinking, the driver of somebody who wants to make something that is not only interesting for an artist and an audience, but also can do good. So let's get some smart people. Let's get some people that I knew from school, some people who are now my closest friends, and talk about how can we make art that leads to better worlds. And it led to a decision point of, number one, financially. I have all of this individual money that keeps getting tied up and lost, and sometimes I get it back, but also I usually don't. How can I separate my personal finances from the finances of these shows? But also, how can I alleviate my stress? Those of you who have been producers before probably know that it is a grind set mentality, and you don't stop thinking about this thing that you are doing, no matter what is happening. My brother told me that he was married, and I was like, well, when is that going to work in the rehearsal schedule? Which I'm not proud of, but it's just the truth. It's just the truth. So that decision point comes, and we need to get this train a-chugging. I gather these people together. I send them an email that I spent probably 3 days crafting, talking about what do I want this company to be, what am I curious about, here's some shows that I think would be fun, and also I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear what you are interested in. Some of us were like, I really have never written a grant before. I would really love to learn how to do that. And so now we're writing grants together. As somebody who has that experience, I get to work with somebody who doesn't, and we are now fighting out there with all these companies trying to get the limited arts funding that's available. Or also some of us are like, I would really love to work on playwriting. I would love to explore that medium. Okay, great, let's do that together. I've written some plays, but also we've got a show coming up in the Fringe Festival. Why don't we do that? Acting opportunities, all of those things that as an emerging artist are so hard to get, so hard to grab onto from these larger established companies where they want you to have worked for them for 20 years potentially, or have all of this experience that but I need the experience to get the experience. The push-pull of being an emerging artist in this field. We then can come together and support one another, not only in our individual dreams, but also be working towards this company structure that combines artistic excellence, social change, and community partnership to hopefully do some good, elevate the work of these nonprofits, and also create some engaging theater. Which led us to our very first show that we wanted to do, this lovely little play called Plano. Em, could you tell us about Plano?
Well, yeah, I would just like to say first too that I think since graduating college, we all took this kind of time away separately to then individually understand what our priorities are as artists, what kind of work do we like to be invested in, who do we like to work with. After all kind of taking separate routes of acting, directing, doing administration, doing stuff on our own, doing stuff with other groups. And then I think, I at least wanted to join forces with this company because of, because we all recognized what kind of work we wanted to put on that we're not seeing in bigger theaters in town. We wanted kind of this really gritty work that asks these really difficult questions and is applicable to today, and also can fund those different organizations at the same time, and figuring out how we can be supportive, actively supportive through our art for those organizations. So we landed on this play called Plano by Will Arbery, and Will Arbery is he wrote Heroes of the Fourth Turning. He also was a writer on Succession. And it really, I think we decided on it because it fit really well with the amount of people we had. It was a women-led piece, and really exploring kind of a family, how people grow in a family together, and how these gender dynamics within their family and within the people that they're with and married to are kind of suffocating within this play. And it gave, it led way for a lot of different like textual exploration, textual analysis. Like the text can be very like absurdist at times, and then also leads itself to movement as well. So for me on this, I knew that I wanted to take part as like a movement director, which as like, because in our position we wanted to give each other these opportunities to strengthen things that we had not done before, and I knew that I had this love for movement work, and I really wanted to direct in the future, so I would love to do this, And so we started these workshops where we gathered a group of actors that some we were like, yeah, well, we know, like, we're definitely going to use as part of this play and this process, and others like just kind of because we loved their minds, and we got together, we read the piece, and we discussed its like major themes first, and then we kind of moved into these movement sections. I made sure to structure these kind of exercises and movement activities in a way where like it was based exactly off of like the play that we read, taking specific sections out of it so that people could understand like this is a section of the play and this is how we can create something that kind of embodies it, and then figure out vocabulary around that specific section. So one of our goals was certainly to find this kind of like common vocabulary amongst our group, to then pull back later when we do a rehearsal process, to like have that kind of common understanding, and also to see just how these like this text and these physicalities like manifest in people's bodies. So we led them on this little exploration. Right now, I think I'm asking them to like imagine that they were walking across a bridge, and we, yeah, I thought it was really, really fascinating, like because it was kind of like being in school again, and that was just very, very cool. And yeah, we just basically learned like what worked for us in regards to like coming up with these small little devised movement sections and seeing like what works, what doesn't work, which we later kind of were able to apply to our fringe show in that process. So because Plano is a large script, it's very hefty. We wanted to first kind of do a test run of some opportunities in order to build us to this point. Which is kind of how we started on our fringe train. Am I missing anything about the Plano workshops?
No, I think you alluding to, just to put a finer point on it, we all agreed collectively that something that we were interested in was a much more rigorous rehearsal process mentality. So within that, we decided to do these workshops to give ourselves the space for, number one, like Em was saying, how do we build that common language around this uncanny movement that we're interested in? How do we as a group like really spend some time diving into text in a way that not only is helpful for the story, but also helpful individually as actors or as directors? I kind of forgot going into that workshop that this was also for me as the eventual director of this piece, to figure out what it means, how these people who are going to perform in it in some capacity, like how do they work and how do we all talk together about this? And like Em was saying, within that we discovered this is challenging stuff. Not only is it a really challenging piece, but even if we were doing, I don't know, Humpty Dumpty, the easiest piece in the world, it would still be challenging.
That's really hard.
Yeah. He falls down.
I know.
It would just be really challenging either way. And so, like Em was saying, we decided to do this fringe process with the intention of giving ourselves like kind of a deadline to figure all of that out, build that car while we were driving it.
Something else I'd like to name too is that like within Plano, it's revolving around an entire family of three sisters, and then kind of their spouses and their mother, and something that, because we all really love these like family dramas, these family pieces, and it really like has to have within the actors and like the directing of the piece like this understanding and history of as an actor, you have to really believe that this group is a family unit. And I would just like to point that out because that was kind of brought up to us within our Fringe play, about like it being such a benefit how well we all knew each other as people, as performers. And I think like we're trying to figure out too, like with a group that doesn't know each other as well, how can you kind of try to achieve that same level of knowing, even if you aren't the best of, like you don't know each other yet, which
like
means
ensemble cohesion.
Yeah, and I think like part of that came in this workshop process of understanding like what everyone's strengths are, and really not surpassing that like emotional quality of bonding in a space and really getting to know each other and not leaving things at the door, and just understanding like how everyone is like bringing themselves into the room. I think, I just find that at least people sometimes surpass like getting to know the actors in the space, and but that indeed actually in our experience has really helped portray these really intense relationships, and long-term relationships.
And to that point too, at the time that we were when this picture was taken, we did not have a production date in mind. This was just like, we wanted to get together and figure out how to do this without even necessarily having that show coming, for sure. Now we do, January, see y'all then. But this was literally us about a year ago, almost, just saying, we want to get together and do some time exploring this piece.
Yeah, to see if it will work out.
And she did, because what do you do?
All right.
We make breach.
We made breach. So we, like they said, we were kind of hungry for like opportunity and kind of a way to soft launch Third Space and our work before getting to Plano, which we all felt like was a bit of a beast. However, Breach was also its own beast. She grew much larger than we had anticipated. We decided to do Fringe in February, and we kind of just started a very fun PowerPoint night with us, and we threw up pitches on our little PowerPoints, and it was anything for like as specific as like a Western of 3 cowboys that were on. One was like revenge, one was out for love, one was out for redemption, to just images that spoke to someone. Like the pitches were, very specific to extremely abstract and just like, this like speaks to me right now, currently. I think it'd be interesting to try and do that. And we spent some time, discussing and trying to decide which ones would work best for us and for Fringe, and what like spoke to us the most at this time. We settled on the crab fishing boat. And then we headed into like our script creation, and then the rehearsal and the like casting, and then rehearsal process and stuff like that, which we'll get more into. But first, here's some inspirations from Breach specifically. This is really tiny, but this is the slide that was pitched for Breach, and it was like isolation, paranoia, and like self-policing, and like the idea was an Alaskan crab fishing boat. And then as you can see, there was like 2 other ideas on that slide as well. And we settled on the Alaskan crab fishing boat. There's also many other brilliant ideas. Rainforest Cafe idea always gets a shout out.
I think it's the best idea
I've
ever come up with.
It was lovely. And
later for later.
Yeah. This was some like imagery that got kind of brought up. And
we certainly felt like this was kind of the container for like the themes that we wanted to explore today, and like with the bodies we had in the room, like with the strengths as like playwrights, and something that could work for fun.
Yes, and that's like kind of the other aspect, is we all went into Fringe being like, what are the roles and positions like that we want to explore? So like Alex and I were like, I would love to write. Alex wanted to direct. Hannah was interested in dramaturgy. Steph, Hannah, and I were all interested in acting as well. So like we were like, how do we basically create these things for ourselves? Yeah, so like we like kind of tailored the process to the things we wanted to explore as artists, like individually and collectively.
Steph, who's not here, was the movement director on the piece, which will come in later.
Something she has never done before, for those who saw the show. Killed it.
So
Yes. So then we settled on that idea of Alaskan crab fishing boat, and then we decided to dive into writing. I know, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I know a lot of devising theater groups like to first play in a workshop setting, kind of like what we did with Plano. But we kind of decided to go do the opposite a little bit. Like we wanted to basically have the container of the script and then go into the workshopping side of things, so that it didn't get too large.
Partially because this is an aesthetic that none of us are familiar with. So having not only the research foundation that writing would require of us, but also then these characters that can be zhuzhed and massaged as the process went on, but gave us a starting point so that we know these two relationships are in conflict. We don't necessarily know how yet. That was something Maria and I debated over for hours at bars.
Yes, we did.
But then gave us just a jumping off point so that we were not diving into the deep end without a life raft.
Yes.
We had that structure to work from.
Yes, and this is kind of how we wrote the script and how it came to be. So first we assessed everyone's interests, ideas, and the desires of the groups. So this included themes or characters that they wanted to play. I think Stephanie specifically, she had just played a very kind of meek and weepy character, and she was like, I want to play someone kind of hard. I want to play someone kind of firm and not so pushed around. Or I can't remember. I think you said someone kind of hardened. Yours kind of changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, they gave us ideas for things they'd want to maybe explore as an actor.
Playing against type, for you in particular.
I really wanted someone scrappy because I always kind of get cast as these sweet, tragic female characters, and I wanted someone with a bit more bite.
I said I wanted to play someone that was in love with the sea.
Yes, that's right, yes. And then as well as just any images that we had discussed or that we really liked, or dramatic moments, or we all were really obsessed with the idea of a sea shanty. So we were there will certainly be a sea shanty. And as well as fighting, we were we want fight choreography. A lot of this was this is for fun, and this was for us, that we just wanted to do. So they gave, we all as a group kind of decided on these things. Alex and I had a list of things we wanted to hit in a script, and then we kind of hit the ground running. We did a ton of research and kind of development, and Hannah did some awesome dramaturgy stuff. And as well as a lot of idea sessions, a lot of talking.
Collectively watching the first 5 episodes of Deadliest Catch over and over again. Which if you have not seen in recent memory,
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It is outstanding that we do this to people.
Yes, yeah. As well as I think we watched The Lighthouse together because that was our other inspiration.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, crab fishing is one of the deadliest jobs in the world. And they truly haven't figured out how to not kill people every week.
I think it's only superseded now by what is the underwater welding or whatever.
Yeah.
It's I think prior to the underwater welding, it was the deadliest job.
And it was important for us to be truthful in that, the stakes and you watch, as you do research into something like that, you're seeing all these people that for one reason or another, whether they've been imprisoned or had addiction issues or just grew up in a really poor socioeconomic strait, a lot of them end up in this position because it has very high risk and very high reward. But then at the same time too, there's this genealogical through line of fishing is a part of an identity for so many cultures. I mean, even in Minnesota, how many of us grew up on lakes and on boats and things like that. But out there, not only is it a way of life in terms of your economics, but it's also this very deeply spiritual and social component that just makes up the entirety of life on the sea.
A lot of the Deadliest Catch is someone being oh, my dad's the captain, I will be captain one day kind of thing. So we were also very fascinated with that. Yeah, and like after a ton of our idea sessions and talking, Alex and I began to like outline actual scenes. I don't know why we told ourselves only 6 scenes. We said we get 6 scenes. But I actually think it kind of helped. I do think like containers, I think if you're feeling lost in anything, a container always helps, in my opinion. Like, you can always like kind of let go of the container or change the container as things transform. But I think sometimes if you're out stranded at sea, get a little container to float on, at least for the time being.
Yes.
So we started outlining things, and then we also started doing a ton of like writing exercises. If we were like struggling with things, we both did like tons of random monologues from characters. I did like weird, like poetic background type things for some characters, like just things to kind of get us going.
Writing around the play.
Yes, yeah, we wrote around the play for not long. I should say maybe don't linger there. But like we just for like probably a week or two, not even, we just kind of did these like little outside writing exercises. And then we hit the ground running once we had the outline, but we changed the outline like 3 times.
Mm-hmm. At one point, we had to, She was crazy.
She was too much. And so like we did a lot of flipping and turning and whatever, and then we finally settled on something. We said we have to do this, we have to write this. So we wrote it in like a week.
A week.
Weird. And we personally, for co-writing, we like split it truly like I think 3 and 3 scenes that we individually wrote, and then like something I found really fun and exciting and silly and great was we also then like came together when those scenes were written, and we basically combed through the entire show like line by line together and like married our writing styles. We changed plot points, we made sure things felt cohesive. Like I have a very poetic, lofty writing style that Alex was like, we must bring this to reality. And Alex has like a very, I think, comedic and like modernist writing style that I sometimes was like, remember they are sailors out at sea. Like this is, so it was a lot of us like marrying our 2 styles and cleaning up or tying up loose ends and making sure the scenes were paced right and things were feeling solid. Yeah, do you want to say anything? Arguing, we did a lot of arguing.
Yeah.
Lovingly.
We had probably a 2-hour conversation about when Dad died. Not if or how, but just when in the timeline.
When in the timeline did Dad die?
Which ended with us being accidentally pretty drunk at a bar.
Yep, correct.
Blood pressure rose. But yeah, haggling over those details and being able to have this sort of wealth of material, not only from our research, but also from, we knew that these 4 people were going to perform in it, and we had a wonderful dramaturgy partner in that writing, where the 2 of us would say, this makes perfect sense, we love this outline, we love this draft, and we would bring that to Hannah, and Hannah would say, I bet you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. And like, but that relationship is so critical, especially when you're doing something, I think, in the surrealist realm, where so often our brains were like, oh, this symbol is so beautiful, we understand what it means. It would be grounded in a really lovely way by this outside eye who was there purely to think about what the audience is going to take away, or what an outside reader is going to take away.
Yeah, especially because when we're having such lengthy conversations between us, like, we had like literally a shorthand that for characters, like we had certain and like plot lines, and so it sounded like gibberish at some point between us, and so like it was really helpful to have someone like sit there and be like, so these things aren't making sense.
The reactive dog is going to bark here,
Yeah.
and then it would go, okay, who's that? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, so we had like just kind of we kind of created our own little world together, and having that outside eye is so critical. And then once we had a script, we presented it to you guys and Steph, and we took their any last feedback they had, made those like kind of last few changes, and then we were kind of off and running.
Off building the crew. So we had a script by the end that had 6 actors in it, and only 4 within our company that we knew were going to be confirmed. We also knew we needed a Steph knew that she wanted to do movement direction in addition to acting. And we needed a sound designer at a minimum because we had some stuff. Sound designer, but also a stage manager, somebody to help us hold this ship together. So within that, as we were starting to talk about, like, how do we bring in outside people now? We've been working in isolation for the most part, like as a group of 5, so now we need to get outside people in. And we really had like these, I think, really good group conversations about how do we, number one, ensure that these people know what's going on and are on the same page as us, but also have a good time, right? Because I'm sure all of us have been in a situation where you walk into a room with 5 people who know each other really, really well, and you're not one of them, and it can be very isolating and very alienating. So it was very important for us as a company to ensure that these outside folks were, number one, good people, smart artists, but also ones who would be empowered to do their best work and have a good time in the process. So with actors especially, we prioritize, I think, above all else, good humans. Good humans above talent, or like, do you specifically fit this part? And luckily, we lucked out and got people who were both, who did such an excellent job with not only the character, but also being in the process. And one of whom, Isabel right here, somebody that we all knew from the U of M, has not acted in a long time, actually, but kind of came out of a dry spell to do this show and killed it. And luckily also was an incredible engineer of crab legs, which was a fun bonus as we eventually started to build our giant crab. And as well, we got the lovely Mary, who is an incredible performer, just did such a great job diving into, they probably are the one that knew us all the least. But within that, also as a director and arts leader, part of what we wanted to do, similar to with our workshops, is spend that time on community building, do some games together, build a workshop period into the script, so not only that we can start to play with some of these ideas that we've been thinking about on our own, but also ensure that everybody is on the same page, knows each other, and has a social connection in addition to a work connection, which then manifested really beautifully in that great ensemble cohesion in the final product. Because, as you can see, this little drawing that I made on Instagram to communicate my ideas, we had some pretty wild ideas in terms of how we were going to actualize this script. And so we needed to create a process that would allow us to explore those ideas and get coherent with them in order to communicate them to the folks that were going to be actualizing it, and then also communicate those ideas to the audience. Just like with the script, we had this isolated group that knew what we were talking about and had a shorthand for it. How do we get that out to the rest of the world?
Can I say something really quick? Just kind of like on the last slide of like understanding, some people in this group like knew each other very well, are starting this together and have been along this train as like, not producers necessarily, but like people who like really knew that this was coming for a long time, like we've been working on this concept, and then like bringing in new people. I think like something that we realized, and it's kind of a balance of like not being, I don't know, not treating it like every professional space necessarily, but like I think that there is a level of like professionalism that we all realized like was very necessary to take on as like if like for instance I was just operating as an actor in the room, like I'm going to enter as an actor would, and going to just like kind of start that process from scratch, like not necessarily like focusing on the previous like conversations or that we've had, like to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Being intentional about inviting those people into.
Yeah, I also felt like, because I co-wrote it, but I was not a movement director, I was not the director, so I kind of told them, like, I want to be able to give up my stance in that a little bit at points. Like, obviously, if you want to consult me for something, like, let's consult. And we certainly had moments in the rehearsal room where we were like, can I change this line? And I was like, yes, no, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, certainly I still had moments as being the writer, but I also liked being able to, like, step into the room as an actor and not have, like, this, I didn't want to like, you know, especially for newer people, like, okay, maybe to one of these two, I could look at them and be like, hey, so I want that line to stay like this. I didn't want to be doing that, especially to new people, but also to you guys. Like it felt good to come in to the space kind of with a different role or like a different thing, for me at least.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great way to put it. Like everyone kind of deserves an equal level of respect, and everyone has a new power in the room, you know, and everyone has an equal power, even the new people coming in, right? That we don't know.
And we also, sorry, I don't know if you're gonna cover this, but we also, like, when we brought in the new people and we did a script reading, we combed through it the same way we did with like these guys and allowed them to like put their own like suggestions and point out flaws or loose ends or things like that to us. Huge plot point that we had missed was the Lila thing of like Olive would technically already know, so we had to like not say her name for a long time in the script, but like it was stuff like that. Like they also brought forth their own ideas and things and suggestions, or like they also haggled with us as the writers to be like, can I change that line? Like how do you know? And I think like allowing them into that process too was I think a good way to start us off like feeling equal, like so they didn't feel like it was like not theirs as well, because it certainly is and became theirs.
Yeah, truly essential.
Yeah.
Cannot recommend anybody who worked on this project enough. Because this is how we worked. We started with a workshop period. Like I said, where throughout all of our musing on this idea, from pretty much the second that we decided that on that PowerPoint night, people started bringing in, whether it was in group chats or in emails or in texts or conversations with each other, started collecting throughout their day-to-day life all of these images that were very inspiring and related to this theme of crab fishing, which I'll show you a few of what we ended up pulling from later on. But that collection process was happening, I think, from up and until the final performance. We were still saying, this is something that inspires me, this is an image or an object that I'm curious about, or a relationship, or something that I heard about crab fishing. Our stage manager, Olivia Von Ediscuti, who's a wonderful stage manager and wonderful director and prop designer and set builder, hire her all the time. She had a brother-in-law who right now is actively on a crab fishing boat in Alaska. And she would have conversations with him and come back and talk to us about it. And we would be like, then you can take that and like, actually we're doing, okay, let's massage this thing to make that real. So we were constantly in this collecting phase. And had a conversation at the top of like, we are going to be entering this workshop period. We're going to be playing with ideas, materials. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at you and see what you can make that's pretty. And there's going to come a time in our process where we need to stop that, and like ideas are going to stop being added, and we're just going to start massaging, which is true of every process. But what I found as a leader, as we got through into rehearsals in particular, is kind of once you start people on that mentality of I can bring in ideas, I can ask questions, I can offer suggestions, or ways to make this more powerful, it creates a really beautiful buy-in from everybody involved. I feel like we had a group of 9 people who were all actively dreaming about crabs for 6 months. Like it was beautiful and led to so many great discoveries. And at the same time too, when we got into rehearsals, there were a few moments where it was like, oh, okay, stop. We need to like focus in and settle down and like charge ahead with this one particular thing. Which, as we talk a little bit later about what I learned as an individual, that is one thing, but having that conversation at the top in this workshop period, once we started, I think gave everybody the understanding that like, this is something that I will be able to contribute to and add my own special sauce to and all of that lovely madness. But then at the same time too, we all need to be able to be focused in and zero in on these particular things. And I would like to give a special shout out to 2 people in this room who gave me the idea to do that. Amber and Derek, who I had a wonderful conversation on a couple months ago in like May or so, about how they do their devising processes. And a lot of what we do and what we talk about going forward is going to be inspired by them. So just thank you both. Woot woot. Because we got into a workshop mode. We took all of these things that we had been collecting, these images these are a couple from the lighthouse that those of you who saw the show, I think will see a few echoes of this in there, but we took some of these images, that we found just a TikTok of this high school making a giant spider, or from The Hobbit, or this of a dance piece that was utilizing this really beautiful fabric in such a gorgeous way. We took these images. This one's a little long, so I'll just zoom ahead. Ignore that.
There.
This beautiful fabric that just looks like a gorgeous waterfall. These were some of the things that we had been collecting over this period going into the workshops. And so what I walked away from is like, okay, we can combine these two things together. Love that. This material is called organza. Okay, I'm gonna go out and buy 40 yards of it. And then this, we know that we want to do a giant crab. Okay, this is how they did it. Great, that gives us a starting point. I'm gonna buy a gigantic box of contractor bags. And then throughout our workshop period, we said, Steph and I, as movement director, sat down and talked about, number one, what are the things that are showing up in the script that we want to make sure that we're spending time exploring? Number two, what are the things that we need to, as an ensemble, have a conversation about and get on the same page about so that we are using the right language? We knew that we wanted to articulate water physically in our bodies, and Steph was like, wonderful, I know this crazy acting method called Margolis method. Those of you who have done it before maybe could recognize it. But then let's spend some time teaching the group about some Margolis techniques so that we can say, all right, this wave is actually a pendulum that's pushing you back and forward, then we can sort of supercharge some of our language there. Doing that in addition to then taking some of these materials and just plopping them in the middle of the room and saying, like, we've all read the script now, we know what we're talking about, these are our references, the things that we are curious about, the ways that we want to use this material. Have some time playing with each other, break apart. And what that led to are some of our favorite images from the show. We figured out how to utilize these, at the time, contract bags and pool noodles to make a giant crab. We had all these milk crates that we knew that we wanted to use for a set, and we started playing with them with flashlights. We were very intrigued by iridescent, like shimmer paper as a way to showcase waves because of a video that Steph sent me that I couldn't find for this, but it's very pretty.
And the shimmer of the ocean.
And the shimmer of the ocean, like, yes, projecting that ocean light, with also the understanding that because we were going into a fringe process, those of you who have done fringe before know you don't exactly know what your tech capability is going to be until you get there. So the more that we could, as an ensemble, do that on stage with handheld props, handheld flashlights, whatever, we were going to be setting ourselves up for a much smoother tech process, which we did.
Yeah, and really like leaning into utilizing like these inanimate objects and everyday objects to help us express a moment rather than like trying to have something more extreme or more maximalist, you know.
I was saying, the script itself was kind of a beast in terms of tech elements, not even being a fringe show, and then for a fringe show it was even worse, so I feel like we had to take the smallest thing we could and make it as big as possible, or we had to like use it to its like full capacity to get kind of like the effects we wanted. Yeah.
Which led to us learning that, number one, we could use these materials in many beautiful ways.
Yeah.
That was lovely. Number two, we had a group of really great artists that were gung-ho to like just sit there and play with fabric for a while. It was like kids in a candy store running through the basement of this church gym, making a lot of beautiful things. And number three, communication was essential. Being able to talk to each other about this thing that we just made and talk to each other with mutual respect, but also with the understanding that like if I'm asking you to lift your arm here or like do something different, it's not because it looks bad, but because I'm trying to see what something else would happen there. How if we just make those little adjustments, we can transform an image. And also, what story is this communicating? What story is this communicating with a specific kind of crab image? What does it mean as a viewer to see somebody with this kind of like handheld gobo being projected down?
Yeah, in very much the same way as we learned in the Plano workshop, like we were able to like do these little like movement devising groups or like with these materials and then understand together like what this common language is, you know, what does like, and we were working with this, the idea of being on the ocean, and so like what does a swell mean for us? What does it look like in everyone's bodies? Like,
and how is that different from a pitch? Like,
yeah,
and making
yeah.
sure to be consistent about that, because those are actually two very different things.
Right,
as
right.
we decided on.
Yeah, and I think we certainly learned very quickly, like kind of what you're talking about on, like from an outsider's perspective, like asking an actor to move this arm because of this reason. Like we all quickly had to learn that like we come with our own expertise and we have to trust everyone else's expertise in the room, because we as like you as a performer cannot be viewing your own work, or like you as a playwright aren't the one speaking the text, you know. So it did really become about a lot of trust falling in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And then we started rehearsals, our second phase. We took all of that material, we built into our schedule this like 2-week period where we would do intensive table work with the script for a portion of the day, and then move into playing with some various materials that I would throw at them, or like working on specific moments in the text. And then we had a built-in 2-week break, partially just like scheduling wise, it worked out that we all had a trip stacked on the same weekend. But also because Steph and I wanted to take some time to digest what had happened and be able to show up at rehearsals, not only with a plan, but also with an understanding of how to work with these people. Because in addition to what we were discovering with how to communicate about images, it also was an exploration of how do these people work in a space. Like how I talk to you as a director was very different than how I would be talking to Hannah. Or when we're doing the crab moment, I need to be on the same page about using the language that you all had collectively agreed upon about how you were moving, in order to make sure that we were not getting frustrated or like recycling the same conversation over and over again. Which then gave us a really great spot to bring in that collaborative energy that we had in rehearsals or we had in our workshops into our rehearsal period. Now we had the material, and so now we had to go for it, but we kept collaboration in our rehearsal process as well.
Yeah, I think what I really loved about like transitioning into the rehearsals too was that like for that break time, the director Alex and movement director Steph like were able to discuss like what worked from the workshop, like how can we put like these specific moments or like something that we want to take out and like put here or there, and so like the workshop, like we were able to understand it as feeling very beneficial for us as performers, and then like utilizing that later, and then still have the ability to kind of like build on it as creators in the room as well, you know?
Yeah, I felt like, what, sorry.
No, go.
I felt like something you guys did really well too is like we came to that rehearsal process and like they had blocking, like they had blocking for us. Like it wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna like see how this feels still or whatever. It was like we had blocking and we had surrealist blocking that you guys had ideas for. And of course when we got into the room, if it wasn't working, we were changing things, we were growing, we were kind of like, you know, pushing out of the idea, or like the blocking that you gave us. We kind of kept like going further out to like, you know, make it even more brilliant and make it work. Like sometimes some of the things that you guys would bring as like blocking, okay, of like this is what's gonna happen here, like it just wasn't working with all the tech elements and all of the moving parts of this show. So like it wasn't like it was like set in stone with what you brought, but it still was like concrete enough that I didn't feel like we were still in that like workshop phase where we were all still like, well maybe what if I do this? It was like less, it was more concrete, but not so concrete that we couldn't push against it and change it and shape it and make sure it's working for everyone.
It felt like a new phase.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And within that, we had some very specific also projects that we as a group needed to figure out, like, the three of us worked on the shanty, for
Yeah,
example.
that was a great kind of example of like seeing what people's strengths were in the room and then developing based on those strengths. Like because like Hannah and I have extensive like more musical backgrounds. We took on like the shanty and like harmonizing it, being able to teach it to folks. And yeah, just really kind of like, spearheading that.
Because I wrote a song and said, beep, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
There you go.
I said, that's so nice. Pew! No, I didn't do that. And then, in fact, like Mary and Isabel, that were actors in the show, were just wonderful craftspeople. And like Mary owns a tailor, is it tailor?
Tailoring shop.
Tailoring shop. And like had a really wonderful understanding of how they could build this 5-person crab backpack.
Yeah.
And and then we scheduled a couple days for the group to go to that tailoring. Why am I forgetting the name?
Tailoring shop.
Tailoring shop. To create like with all the fabric that we had, like to create those materials. And Isabel created all the legs and the claws and out of
Farm materials.
out of cardboard.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, everything was
Yeah.
recycled, basically.
Yeah, that was a theme for the show as
Yeah.
well. Like we wanted to use recycled materials in order to kind of still point out like the themes in the script, and also because we were working with the freshwater organization.
And because it's cheap.
And because it's
Yeah.
cheap, and for budget
And
reasons.
something that we discovered in our workshop process where it was like, here's 10 bottles on the ground, what can you do with these? And everybody went, where'd you get all these bottles? And we said like, oh, we collected them from our homes. Oh my God, like, it was something that excited us and something that we just kept following. Like, we kept on joking that all of our cars were filled with garbage for 6 months.
The whole summer.
The whole summer. Mine still is, I haven't gotten rid of it. But it was the shanty, the crab, and also something that Steph did that I really appreciated was those who saw the shanty, like it is, every character breaks out at one point from this core group and has their own movement sequence that every individual actor got to create. What makes sense for your character based on the research that you and we have done? What kind of mechanics would you be doing on the ship if you were actually in this role? Go figure that out, present it to us. Okay, let's shape it a little bit. Excellent. All of those little, I think, embellishments of individuality within the piece then gave actors, I felt, as an outsider watching it oftentimes, gave them each like something to, even if I'm having a bad day, coming into the room, I know that I have this like little jewel that is mine that I am fully in control of, and I can shape it however I need and however the needs of the show are, and I know what that goal is, and I'm working with everybody. So it just felt like overall a very beautiful combination of a group of individuals working towards a collective. And it led to some really, really wonderful images, I thought. All of our production photos were taken by the incredible Alyssa Tay. She's a beautiful production photographer. She's on all of my shows. Highly recommend her. But just naming that as we go look at a few of them. And we had a few things that were different between like our conception of it to the execution.
Yes, I feel like a lot of it, honestly. I think something that at least in the script directions, or the stage directions, I'm quite poetic with it, and I leave it up to whoever's gonna do it. I say like, now it's yours, feel free. So like for instance, there was this scene with like, Monroe, M's character, saw boats on the water that were not perhaps actually there. But we were like, how do you portray boats on the water on stage? And I just gave a description of these things, like lights in the darkness kind of thing. And, or the idea of a flare gun going, and like he's, this light streaking across like a comet. And from there, like, I had no idea. I mean, I had ideas of how you could do it, but it became the water bottles. We held a flashlight to water bottles with water in it, and it created this like shimmery light effect. And we had that shimmer crate, that's what we called it, and it had like iridescent paper in it, and it created like all these colors On everyone and on what it kind of, on the surfaces it touched, and like, so like I had never, that is like not how I thought of it when I wrote it, but like when it came together, it was like beautiful and wonderful, and as well as like there was so many other things that like we got into the space, and it just like transformed how we had originally conceptualized it. Or thought of it. I think also like even just our themes, like I think you saw on the slide like way earlier, like it was about like paranoia and panopticon was like what we were like originally working with, but I feel like we actually, I mean like yes, there was paranoia, but I feel like we actually ended up on like a individual versus collective, and how like you have to work together to get through these things, and like if you try to individually, you know, do it on your own or go against the group, or even do things that are selfish for yourself, like everything falls apart. So like I feel like we even transformed like the theme we originally went with towards a different theme entirely, just by nature of everything we learned and grew with.
And the theme kind of reflecting in how we knew we had to work with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like
Even when you all were trying to kill each other.
even when we were all in the play.
Mhm.
And like, you know, just knowing that it is for the collective, and sometimes like that is the most powerful thing you can do.
Yeah.
And for the collective is for everyone.
Yeah.
And so to this end, by the time that we got into our performances, we had a thick hour of content. And I was going into our tech process. Those who don't know, Fringe, you get, if you're lucky, 1 hour to space in the space, and then 3 hours to tech your entire show, in which you need to do about a 30-minute venue tour throughout the space. You also need to do at least 1 full run of your show, and you need to prove to them that you can strike it in 10 minutes. So all that is to say, we had about 1 hour to do over 115 sound and light cues, which I heard all of your blood pressure rise. Mine was as well.
Yeah.
However, the way that we did that, and me now having done a couple Fringes before, I knew going in that we needed to be able to work with the limitations of that space, which we did with a lot of our surrealist moments that were funkier and doing some stranger things that would be hard to explain to a new person. All of that was essentially handheld. The actors were in charge of it. So that took a lot of load off. And then what we decided to do in collaboration with the stage manager, who also was just rattling off cues like an auctioneer. She's an incredible, great at what she does. We talked through like how can we create essentially 6 base lighting looks that we can copy and paste throughout the show, so that while it was 115 cues, there was actually really only 8 or 10 things that we needed to build. And I named that partially because that is not something I would have thought of prior to our conversation, but for those of you who do Fringe in the future, take that and run with it, because it worked, because we got through over 115 lighting and sound cues, we got through a full run, and we had, I think, 15 minutes to spare by the end of it.
Yeah.
I walked out of that tech feeling like I had done a line of coke. It was, I had never been so jazzed in my life.
Yeah. And we prepped so much too. Like the
Mhm.
previous rehearsal, we as a group like made sure that we talked through extensively like each different cue, sound wise, like how our bodies were moving with the sound cues, so that we could be as prepared as possible for the next day. Going into it.
We definitely came in as actors like, okay, we need to be like literally I said I'm taking a vow of silence unless you actually ask me anything directly. Like we needed to come in and as well as like be prepared. Like we weren't, obviously Fringe is like you can do it a little more loose and a little more fun and like, you know, whatever, but we knew we had a beast and we knew we all had to be as sharp as possible. We knew like we couldn't be kind of not on solid ground. Like we needed to be as solid as possible as actors. Like everything memorized, everything down, no one's missing cues, no one's, you know, etc. So like we definitely took the hard route of Fringe, or like the intense route. You can definitely not do that as well. But it did work for us. I think if you have a beast, you gotta go for it.
And another positive as well was we made the decision that the Fringe techs, luckily they allowed this, which was super. I don't think they're required to, just to put that out there. But they allowed us to run our own sound. So Olivia was calling all of the sound cues off of our own cue lab, which worked wonderfully because then we take that burden off the techs. All they have to do is focus on the lights, and we then can continue to work on the sound as time went on. So we had one of the earliest techs, which was wonderful because then we still were able to have 2 or 3 more rehearsals after that, where we were able to continue to futz with our sound design and help it to work for the moments. So going into our tech process, we had a conversation of like, do your best, power through, the sound isn't going to be right, and that's okay. We're focusing on the lights, we're focusing on being in the space, that is what our goals are, and having that collective understanding then meant that we weren't stopping to like deal with the fact that our crowd was done talking by the time they walked out and got into position, or that this moment was, with our siren fabric, was not where it needed to be yet. Having that group conversation and group understanding going in, I think really set us up for success. And success it was. We had, just to put a coda to our experience here, we had 5 stupendous performances with some really great reactions from the audience. We all collectively agreed like this is a behemoth and it might sink or swim, but the important thing and the thing that we all were very clear on with each other was that this was just a wonderful, magical process of creativity and play and joy, and as you can see in this picture, we were all very, very excited to perform it. Yeah, anything to add about our performance run, reactions, what it was like as an actor?
We were like, I think, kind of so prepared by the end that all we could do at that point was like give it to the world, and that felt really good. And I think like, especially with something that you'd like workshopped and devised, like to be at a point of such readiness, I think really, it felt really good to me at least. Like even like we did not know how everyone else would react to it, but like if nothing else, took really great pride in the fact that we had like given ourselves a time constraint, we'd given ourselves all these things, and we had created this thing, and we were prepared and we were ready, and so it made like sharing it kind of so much more exciting and fun.
Yeah, it gave me so much hope as like a theater person and as a performer and as a creator, like, because you know it was a show where we were pointing out some really hard truths about capitalism, about gender, about leadership in this play alone, and you know the audience reactions which we were able to receive in person, and also like because Fringe has like reviews, and you can go on the Fringe site and see those reviews from complete strangers to us, was really magical, I thought, because like so many people were so excited by this new work, and to like have it be an all like femme non-binary crew was so important too. Like it just proved to me that like these kind of stories can, like, from this level of like no financial like standing, like can really be like what people want to receive, and like in this city too, because I think we're also invested in like what the Twin Cities theater community is. Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. Jumping on the sidelines. I think if anybody here is in a newish company, one of the exquisite things about Fringe is getting to see so many shows and engage with like the inspiring work of your peers in a way that is so unique. Like, we all do shows throughout the calendar year, but like there's financial burdens, like there's scheduling conflicts, like there's so many barriers to it, and just to like throw yourself into the festival and like have an open heart to like making connections and like learning, and also getting to like share and speak, like it's extremely unique, and I think it just like it helps you grow so much.
It's a lovely sense of community and vitality, because you're seeing all this work, you're engaging with each other, you're running up to blankety blank and saying, I loved your show, it was so good, I have to go see this other one, but I want to talk to you about it at some point. And those reviews coming into, as a new company, we now have 76 people's endorsement of our work. And again, like Em was saying, because I'm a producer, I will also just name the numbers to dispel. This show in total cost $2,000. and we made about 5. And Fringe takes 30% of your ticket sales, so we made more than that, technically.
Yeah.
But
And it was really just like through word of mouth. It was like a crazy scenario where like the first 2 shows were attended by the general Fringe public, and then the word spread. And that is a great thing about Fringe too, is because like your Fringe is focused on that marketing and word of mouth, and like you have the postcard setups everywhere, and so it is a great like marketing tool.
yeah,
It's also a lot of fun for, kind of like what Hannah was saying too, for like if you're a newer company at all, like there's also a ton of other newer companies, and like to be able to connect with each other for Fringe is like, it's like the easiest way to do it, I think.
well worth your time.
Yeah.
All that is to say. And as we are a newer company, and we're running a little short on time, so I will blast forward. Our reflection, what would we do differently? What did we love? What would we change? As a company, number one, I think we were overall pretty good about communication in terms of admin things. That was something that I was primarily focused on, but all of us as like the 5 as part of the company were really great about pitching in. I felt like our schedule gave us plenty of time to do what we needed to do, and every process ends with you saying, oh, I want another week, I want to keep massaging. That's just our rule as an artist. But we were in like Maria said, such a great spot going into our tech and going into our performances. It felt very prepared. And that is entirely because we had such a great team, a really wonderful group of people. This is Olivia, our stage manager. She's in on our one of our first rehearsals. So just a positive thing that we're walking away from. As if we were to do it again, things that I would want to grow in, utilizing our resources. We had this beautiful, beautiful church, Lyndhurst Congregational UCC down in South Minneapolis. They let us come into their space for very, very cheap, gave us this big, beautiful gym to rehearse this gigantic show in, and I meant it when I told them we literally could not have done this without that space. It was such a gift to be able to do that. But part of what we were doing is we were carrying a table down maybe 1.5 million stairs every day and then back up again. And halfway through, I think Hannah said, like, can you just ask them if we can leave it? And they said, of course, we don't care, it's a table. To watch the joy enter these people's faces when I told them we did not need to take the table. Utilizing those resources, just asking the question. As a Midwesterner, I forget that the worst people say is often no, and that's okay. So that is something that I am working on. Also proactive delegation and engaging with our partner organization. Something you might not have heard throughout a lot of what we were talking about was our partner organization, the Freshwater Society, which is this great Minnesota nonprofit that is dedicated to inspiring people to preserve and protect clean water. Very important work. Something that as an arts leader, in the devising, how do we do this thing? What is crabs fishing? I need organza, okay. Kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. So I found myself, upon reflecting, maybe too focused on the making versus the mission. And luckily, like when I asked for help in engaging with them and like setting up these meetings or having these conversations, Hannah became our point person in engaging with them and did a wonderful job with it. But now, as we go into our next process, something that I want to do is be more rigid with this is our calendar of engagement. These are the specific questions that we need to ask them. And also having conversations with them about how can we, as these who's-its that are about to put your name on our work, better support you as well, make it more of a symbiotic relationship in that sense beyond just donating money to them. Which we were able to do. We were able to donate, again, $500 to them, which drop in the bucket for their work, but something that we, I think, all were very proud of after the fact. And simultaneously, I feel like we have a really great sense of community as a director and people in the space. I felt like we were really prepared most of the time. We had some really, wonderful rehearsals where we were all just exploring and trying to figure stuff out around those unified goals. As soon as we had conversations of like, this is what we're trying to do today, then everybody was able to reframe their brain of like, okay, I have this question, but actually that's not in pursuit of that, so I'm gonna pocket that, save it for another time, which was a really helpful tool for us. Simultaneously, communication as a deviser, I found myself sometimes utilizing words that they did not understand because they were not the words that they had agreed upon, because while they were having a conversation with Steph about what it means to be water, I was talking to Olivia about how to make the crab backpack or like manipulate those things. So like as a leader in the space, I was reflecting a lot on where could I have been a little better about being on their language. And setting those goals, right? We were good about it, but it was inconsistent. And so I think sometimes as a leader, if you can just say, this is what we're doing today, this is what my hope is, it helps everybody get on board the same train, as opposed to like, we're gonna run pages 10 through 15. All right, everybody ready? You know, that's a very different understanding of what the objective of the day is. And now, we can create together. This is us because we did end up winning 2 awards this year at the Fringe. Very proud of that. And all of these happy people, happy faces. This is our sound designer, Sam Faye King. They did incredible work. Hire them as well, also a lighting designer about town. And this is just the team that no matter what you're doing it with good people. Even if the show had crashed and burned and nobody came, I would have been very proud of the 6 months that we spent together making this thing. And I just cannot thank them enough, those of you in the room, as like people who jumped on board and all said, yeah, let's do a play about crab fishing. Let's do this company, let's figure this stuff out. Couldn't have asked for a better group to have this first outing, official outing as a group together. And if you ever were to replicate this model to make something beautiful, essentially summarizing what it was that we did, gathering together, getting in a room, finding that third space with your people, discussing your strengths, your desires, your aesthetics, what interests you, what activates you, and finding a container for that, whatever it may be. If you want to do Humpty Dumpty the musical, rock on. Take it and run with it. And begin that collection phase. What are you going to put in that inspires and activates this group based on their collective interests? Find that inspiration and then figure out how to explore it. We all looked at those source images. We looked at the lighthouse. We looked at Deadliest Catch. We said, okay, we need some fishing bibs. We need something that's going to be fish. How can we make fish? Steph said, what if we used plastic bottles so that we get that sickening little crunch sound? What are things that actualize as water? Okay, lights do that. How can we use lights? Lights aren't always working all the time. What if we use fabric? Oh, this fabric works. And then getting together and just making it happen. Originally, before we realized how long-winded we are, we did have an activity to potentially do together of offering you all the opportunity to choose a container together and do some of that collecting yourself. So feel free to take a picture of this and run wild. Just some various ideas that we had of getting together in groups, discussing your strengths, finding that inspiration, and what would you need to make that happen. We knew that we needed a big space, we knew that we needed a bunch of garbage, and we knew that we needed some really talented people. Luckily, we got all 3. So we now ask, do you have any questions? How can we help you all on your journeys as you figure this out? James, what's up?
Hey. Could you speak more on how those 6 months were broken down? Because there was a couple of phases. Was it, rehearsing June, July? Was it rehearsing May to July? Was it writing, Feb to March?
They had, I think, a soft line between each of them, but I would say we figured out we got into Fringe probably March. I think that was the lottery drawing. So that was our go time.
Yeah.
And then we knew that based on what we wanted to do, we needed to start rehearsals by June,
Sure.
Sometime in June. So therefore our next month and a half from March to late.
No, it was so,
May?
so April and May We basically I think April, I feel like we were still finalizing some things, and then May is when you and I wrote the script. And then June is when we hit rehearsals. So
June workshop period,
yeah,
2-ish weeks at the end, and then July was our hardcore, hit the ground running.
yep.
Rehearse.
So March and April was primarily, so the PowerPoint party was before March, or was it
It might have
after?
been in March.
I think it was the weekend after we had gotten drawn. So
Yeah.
You got drawn and then
Wait,
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint
party.
night
What do we
for
do?
pitches.
Okay.
we said 1 week, think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I remember we finalized the idea on my birthday, which is March 15th.
Oh, yeah.
So we finalized the crab fishing, or the day after my birthday. We went out for brunch. So we did.
Yes.
So.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Curiosities, rages? Yeah.
Who wrote which half of the play?
Well,
By the end, it
yeah,
was-
by the end we had sat with each other and the script for so long, and we literally would sit line by line and we would rewrite the lines together, talking, sitting there. So I feel like by the end it was both of us, but it was, you did scene 1,
I wrote the beginning and the end.
I wrote the middle,
Uh,
kind of.
and then
more or
I did
less.
the big
You
fight
did
scene where they're all
5,
drunk
yeah,
and
yeah, you did 5.
falling overboard and
Yeah, but yeah, by the end we had coalesced so much that I was kind of I don't know, at this point it's both of us.
I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, I couldn't
looking
tell.
at it.
Yeah, same. I'm I don't know whose line that is anymore. It's probably both of us now.
We liked to say that if it was something really poetic, it was Maria, and if it was something really funny,
It was
Alex.
Alex. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly.
That's our MO.
That is. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah.
I'm curious how you meet with your nonprofit partner. What were those conversations like, and what kinds of goals do you have in terms of how those relationships function?
Yeah. The specific things that I like, especially going forward too, the things that I want to enhance with that is, number one, how can we support your work now that we have this captive audience? Through the past partnerships, that has led to them asking, can you advertise this volunteer opportunity? Or I've done some written interviews with their executive directors about, here's 5 things that your organization does that relates to this show. Let's talk about them, and then they share that on their social media and we amplify that. Trying to amplify some of their posts, tag them in everything, get people directing into their social media channels. And the conversations are usually can we get a PNG of your logo? Can we get your mission statement that you want publicly available? Do you have anything that you want us to expand upon for you or lift up for you? In their case, they had this volunteer event that was going on over the course of Fringe that actually got rained out, unfortunately, but we put that information in the playbill and also added it to our more info page of the Fringe website. And then also the promise of the donation, essentially no matter, you could do absolutely nothing, that's okay. Just give us your mission statement, give us your logo, and we promise that we will donate 10% of whatever our overall sales are. And the other thing too is that as a producer, I budget that into the budget, treat it like almost a production position, so that even if we lose money, they have that guarantee. Because that is your budget is a value statement, and so that is a way that shows up for me, to make sure that no matter what, they are getting some kind of support. Even if they are beyond capacity or we are beyond capacity, which kind of happened in this particular instance. The other thing that we wanted to do was also as a group, do a volunteer opportunity. With them, they told us, at any point, feel free to just grab some garbage bags and do a shoreline cleanup and tag us, and we would love to amplify that for you and them. And that was one of the things that kind of fell off on our schedule list in the pursuit of doing it. We still totally could, and I hope we do sometime soon, but yeah. Thank you all so much for hearing us yap for a while. It was such a gift doing this for you all and such a joy to hear these questions. Chat with us. We would love to hear any thoughts that you have about your own companies, your own processes. If you saw something that you're that's crazy that you did that, we'll say, you're so right, help us do better. We would love to. And feel free to follow us on social media. We've got Plano coming up at Mixed Blood in January. of this coming year. So we hope to see you down there. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We appreciate you.